Welcome to the Illegally Healed podcast, bringing you the faith, science, and hope of cannabis extract therapy. And now your host, Kevin Quinn.
Welcome to the show. My name is Kevin Quinn. We're coming to you live from Houston, Texas. This is the Illegally Healed podcast, and we've got an amazing show for you right now. Our guest tonight is Michael Cutler, live from the UK. Michael is a 63-year-old grandfather, and he claims that he cured his cancer Breaking Bad style homemade cannabis oil. This is incredible. See, Mike had a liver transplant back in 2009, but in late 2012, cancer had attacked the new organ. Now, there was virtually no traditional treatment available for him, and he was given a bag of morphine and sent home to die. But Mike has defied all the odds, and he's decided that he wasn't ready to die. So, Mike, we want to welcome you to our show. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here with us. Thank you so much for joining us from all the way across the pond tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Mike, I just want to take you back to 2012. You actually had a liver transplant previously to discovering that you had cancer. Is that correct?
I did, yes.
And so tell me a little bit about that diagnosis.
Well, it all started about August 2008. I passed out. I sort of had blackouts a few times. My wife got concerned and got me to go to the doctors who took blood tests. And he called me into the office there one day. He was a very good doctor, actually. He was very straightforward. And he said, his words were, he said, I usually tell my patients, I use what I call the ACEs. He said, if it's one ACE, it's not so good. Two ACEs is pretty bad. I said, well, how many have I got? He said, you've got 5. With that, I was quite shocked. And I said, what does that mean in terms of... He said, you've got cancer. He said, really bad. And I should imagine you've got about 3 months to live. From there, he was pretty sharp, and he said, look, we're not going to let it go there. We're going to try and get you on a transplant list. And he managed to get me on a transplant list after being turned down by about 2 or 3 hospitals because they said it was too far gone to do anything. Eventually, a London hospital took me on. And towards the very end, some poor soul lost their life and gave me their liver. And I survived. And then in 2011, they took a scan to see how things were working out. And, they said it was clear. There was no cancer there. And then in 2012, I was feeling quite ill. And I was told that the cancer was taking the new liver. They said I was too old for another transplant. Tried a lot of things, didn't work. Just made me more ill. And in the end, they sent me home with loads of morphine and said there's nothing more that they could do. My health deteriorated really, really badly. I became bedridden. The morphine got stronger and stronger doses, and I lost myself. I didn't know who I was. Became a babbling idiot, I think. But my wife was pretty strong. She helped me greatly. She used to comfort me when I was racked with pain in the middle of the night. Fed me my morphine when my hands were too shaky to do it myself. And I was in a really dark place, But in all dark places, there's a glimmer of light. And there was some moments of clarity. And it was in those moments I thought, there's got to be more to it than just this. Because at that point, I just wanted to die, get it over with. But I don't know, there was something in me that wanted to fight. Like I said, I was bedridden. And all I had was a laptop. And I started to research things. And I came across Rick Simpson on YouTube. I thought, wow, this is amazing. But how can this be true? It's, I couldn't understand why, if this was a cure, as Rick was proclaiming it was, why wasn't our government doing something about it? Anyway, I thought, I'm going to give it a try. I've got to give it a try. And by some fluke or miracle, somebody was just there in front of me with some, and they gave it to me. And so I started taking it, and within 3 days, I'd stopped taking my morphine. My wife got me to go to the doctors, and he said, my God, you look well. And he said, what's happening? And I said, well, I've stopped taking the morphine. I'm taking cannabis oil. And he was more concerned that I wasn't having serious withdrawal symptoms from stopping taking the morphine than he was about the cannabis oil. It didn't come to much, and he poo-pooed the idea that I was taking the cannabis oil. He gave me a big lecture and told me off and said I was doing something really illegal, which I already knew that I was, but I thought, well, do I be a good citizen and die, or do I become a criminal and live? But there's no choice really, is there? You know, you just do it. And about 2 months into taking the oil, I started coughing up blood, or what I thought was blood. And I thought, this isn't good. My wife wasn't happy. So back to the doctors we went. I took a sample. He looked at it. And he said, well, I don't know what this is, but it's not blood. He didn't give me any kind of indication what it could be. He just said, well, look, I think we've got to get you back to the main hospital and we'll give you a biopsy and find out what's going on. So went back home, and my wife, being who she is, she went out and bought me a microscope and some software package, and I hooked it up to the computer so I could see it on the screen, and I put it under the microscope, took a photograph of it, and started to search to see what I could come up with. And suddenly there was this picture in front of me on the screen, identical to the one that next to it, which was the one that I spat up. And to my amazement, it was a dead cancer cell. And apparently I'd been coughing up all these dead cancer cells. I was totally amazed. And shortly after that, I went back to the main hospital. They gave me a biopsy. Came home. My wife came with me when we went back for the results. And my first words were, what's happening with the cancer? And they said, what cancer? And that's it. And I've not looked back. I did go through quite a bit of problems because of what I was doing. Everybody kept coming down on me saying, oh, you've got to stop taking this, you've got to stop taking this. But if I didn't take it and carried on taking pharmaceutical drugs that they were pumping into me, that's what would have killed me. It was the cannabis oil saved my life.
Very good point that you make right there, and your whole story just has given me chills as to what you've gone through. So inspiring.
Mine's just one story, you know. I managed to have conversations with Rick Simpson since, and the amount of people that he's got success stories, you know. And since I've made my story over here open in the UK, I've been inundated with stories. And what I find so amazing is that when I started all this, I really felt so alone, you know, that there was nobody I could talk to. There was nobody that knew anything about it. And if I mentioned cannabis, it was like, oh, God, you know, you can't talk about that. You're not allowed to, you know. So I was really alone. Since I've said my story, hundreds of people have come forward and they're telling me their stories and how alone they felt. And I said, well, you're not alone anymore. You've got us, because we've got the UPA, the United Patients Alliance, and you can stand with us.
For our listeners who haven't heard of this group, the United Patients Alliance that you just mentioned, that's a group that seeks to advance legal access to cannabis therapeutics in the United Kingdom. Is this right?
Yes, for medical patients, yeah.
Well, why don't you take a minute, Mike, to tell us a little bit about the UPA and the work that you're doing with them?
Well, it started off, I was contacting people trying to reach out to find somebody that I could talk to, and out of the blue, I got this email from somebody that I'd been contacting. They gave me a name and said that he was involved with Brighton Cannabis Club, and his name was Thomas. And I contacted Thomas, and he said, yeah, come down. Brighton's not too far away from Hastings, where I live. So I went down there and saw them, and I went to the club. And they were having a little talk there. And the person that was doing the talking was a chap called Clark French. He's quite an activist. He's a MS sufferer, and he's really been pumping to, you know, make this legal for medical patients. And I got introduced to him after we started talking, and I told him my story. And he said, look, do you think you could say something? And I said, yeah. So he invited me down again on another evening, on another occasion, and I think there was about 5 of us there. a few people with all different ailments, if you like, and we all spoke about how cannabis oil or cannabis helped us with our ailments. And it went down really, really well. And Clark came up with this idea, well, let's put together this United Patients Alliance and get more people to stand under the banner. With his contacts, he pulled together this meeting that we had in Brighton on the 17th of July. Professor David Nutt was involved, and he used to be for people that probably don't know or have heard of Professor David Nutt, he was the scientific officer to the Home Office, and they sacked him because he came up with the idea that cannabis was good for people. Caroline Lucas, a local MP for the Green Party, she was there. And there was about 12 people, including myself, of all speakers, who all stood up and told their stories. And bearing in mind, we had only spoken to 5 or 6 people as a group, and suddenly there was a hall full of 300 to 350 people. It was an amazing. And I thought, if we've just done this in a few weeks, what's it going to be like in a few months? We're getting our voice heard out there, and more people are joining us or coming on board or communicating with us and saying, God, I wish I'd known this before because I've been feeling so alone. And I knew exactly what they meant, to be alone, to feel so alone with no help, no guidance. And it made me really angry to think that, this plant has been around for thousands of years, and its healing powers are known all over the world. And yet, why is it illegal?
What do you think, with the work that you're doing and helping connect patients with the resources to get themselves help, and all the work that you're doing and the other advocates that you're meeting in the UK, here in the United States, we're seeing a push toward legalization, and the scales are starting to tip. Finally, we're having a dialogue where we talk about rescheduling cannabis, taking it off Schedule 1, making it more accessible for medical purposes. Do you see a similar push like that happening and a serious dialogue like that happening in the legislative halls of the United Kingdom?
I do. I seriously do. I think even within the House of Lords, a lot of these people are for it. But for some reason, the power of the pharmaceutical companies that say grease the palms of Parliament are holding everything at bay because can't use the cannabis oil, then we've got to go for their chemo and radiotherapy, which they're charging thousands of pounds for, whereas a little bit of cannabis oil doesn't cost that much. I think I don't really know. I'm not into it as much as some other people. All I know is it worked for me and it's working for other people, and it's about time that the government stopped calling us criminals. How can they allow sick children to die? How can they do that? Thousands a year die, children. And they put all these poisonous pharmaceutical drugs into them and kill them. They fry their bodies from the inside.
Before I got involved with Illegally Healed, I had no idea that cannabis and its benefits extended beyond just helping people with their symptoms, symptom control, pain relief, helping people who are on chemotherapy feel better and get their appetite back. I mean, everyone knows, it's very common knowledge that cannabis has the side effect of stimulating your appetite. But beyond that, I wasn't educated to the facts that there's a lot of compelling evidence, Mike, that cannabis can actually kill cancer cells. And you are a testament to that. And I just want to thank you so much for being on our show and sharing your story, sharing what you're doing with UPA, and just helping to stand up and make your voice heard for not only you, but patients around the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
On behalf of Illegally Healed, my name is Kevin Quinn. Make sure you like our Facebook page at facebook.com/illegally-healed. We're on Twitter. We are everywhere. Share, like, join us on our journey to stand up and make our voices heard.
You've been listening to the Illegally Healed podcast. Remember, your passion and dedication will make the difference in spreading the word on this critical treatment. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and online at illegally.healed.com.